Good evening, everybody. Peter Downs here. I think we'll get the webinar underway right now. Welcome to the first of what is a series of 4 for the National Officiating Scheme Mentor in Action webinar series for 2015. My role this evening is pretty simple, really. I've got to push the buttons in the background and guide us through the technical part of that as we go through, which you will find out. We want to encourage you as much as possible to ask comments, ask questions, and make comments throughout the webinar. On your screen, you should be able to see a little question box there where you can type in your question and send that in. What happens then is I'll be able to see that question as we go through the presentation. We can stop at any point and pose your questions to Daryl and myself, or relay that comment to the audience this evening. So please do ask questions and make comments at any time. We'll particularly ask you, we'll have some polls as well. We'll asking you particular questions, and feel free to do that. We also are recording this event for the future, so you will be able to see a recording of this evening's webinar in a few days' time as well. So yes, please do get in contact with us throughout this webinar. It won't go for longer than 1 hour. Our host for our resident expert is Daryl Durham, who I'll now unmute. Daryl, and say good evening, Daryl. Can you hear me?
Hi, Peter. How are you this evening?
I'm good, Daryl. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Good. I'll hand over to you. We've got a nice little crowd in, as you can see on here. I think people are reasonably familiar and sending questions. If you've got them, Daryl, I can relay them to you straight away. But for the moment, I'll leave it in your very capable hands.
Thanks very much, Peter. Welcome everybody to our our first webinar in the series of 3 for the new mentors within the NOS program, and then we're having an additional one a little bit later after this series is finished for the mentors that have already gone through this training. Now, as we go through this training or this webinar, you will find that there will be some duplication of some of the slides that we did back in February. But what I want you to be able to do is to put it in the context of the experience you've now got, given it is now May. As I said in the email that went out the other day, the year is flying by and we're just about at the halfway mark of the actual scholarship program for the scholarship officials. And I'm pretty sure that you would have all realised that the actual scholarship officials met on the Gold Coast last weekend. So what we try and do with the whole support of the mentors is have certain formal contact time with you guys, and this is why we have this webinar series, and we'll also be meeting in June face-to-face. So Peter, if we get to the first slide. Okay, this is a poll question. So this quote was given to you at back in February. So behind every successful person, there's one elementary truth. Somewhere, somehow, someone cared about their growth and development. This person is their mentor. So that was a quote by a researcher, Beverly Kay. So I'm now going to ask you, are you the mentor described in the above quote? Now, Peter, would you like to explain how to respond to the poll questions?
Sure, Daryl. Yeah, you'll see just in a second, you'll see those poll questions come up onto your screen, and you can simply click onto your answer there. Yes, aspiring to be, or my talent is emerging.
Now, Peter, you didn't advise everybody that we can actually monitor whether they're engaging or whether they're on websites or whether they're shopping or whether they're on eHarmony or on other sites. So we better have that full disclosure.
Yeah, we can actually see if they have the webinar screen on their screen from our end, rather than watching My Kitchen Rules or whatever it is on at the moment. So we are watching. Okay,
I think it's always better to have full disclosure.
yeah, I think we've got all the votes in, Daryl. I'll show the results
Yep.
now.
Okay, so we've got great. No one is in the emerging talent stream, which is fantastic. We've got 25% of people saying yes, and 75% of people aspiring to be. So that's great news. I mean, alarm bells do occur to myself if we've still got emerging talent and we're down 5 months in the middle of the year. So yes, we've got 25% going, yep, I'm that type of person, and 75% going, well, I'm still on my continuum of learning. So that's great to see. And with that 75%, I just want to remind you that Nani, Toppy, and myself, if you have any problems whatsoever, and even if they're not problems, you just want to have a chat, happy to sit down and have a chat. I was chatting to one mentor about a week and a half ago, could have been 2 weeks, about some things that he was doing with his official, and that was great. So even if you want to have a chat or a debrief, we're here to help you guys. So don't feel that you have to do this by yourself. Thanks, Peter. Okay. Sorry, Peter, I've just got a bit of a technical problem here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll go off my slides. Okay, the FIME approach. We talked about this up on the Gold Coast. We can have varying environments when it comes to the mentoring environment. So we have the one-on-one mentoring, which I would say the majority of you are all doing. We've got the group mentoring, we have the peer mentoring, we have the online mentoring, and we have the compound mentoring. Again, as we discussed up on the Gold Coast, any one of those is great, but to really establish yourself, you really need to have this one-on-one mentoring situation occurring. And again, remember the GP, the general practitioner discussion that we had, whereby you are the general practitioner that's looking at the overall official and assisting the overall official in their development. And if you have to refer them to a specialist in any field or back to one of our specialists, which is John Hart or Sally or any of the lads at the Sports Commission, then please feel free to do it. It's not a sign that, oh, well, I'm not coping or anything like that, because we've had some mentors in the past turn around and go, well, no, I have to deal with it all by myself. So remember the general practitioner analogy, whereby you're the GP looking at the overall health of the official in regards to their development, and quite happy to refer them to other people. Next slide, thanks, Peter, which is another poll. So, how would you describe your relationship with your official at the moment? Working exceptionally well, working well, satisfactory, needs more work, or a nightmare? So if we go to that poll, that'd be great, Pete.
Okay, it's up there now. I can see the votes coming in.
Oh, Peter, have you mentioned about iPads?
Yeah, that's a good one, Daryl. Yeah. If you're using an iPad for this webinar, unfortunately you can't vote on the poll. But I think it looks like we're getting everybody voting, so I'm not sure that anyone's on an iPad, which is good.
Okay.
Well remembered, Daryl. Okay.
Oh, it's probably good for the people watching the replay later.
Yeah.
So if they ever log in.
Yep.
Okay, so we've got working exceptionally well 38%, working well 30%, and satisfactory 13%. Now that's great. We're all above satisfactory. We're either at satisfactory or above, and it's working well. 50% of the group, 38 saying it's working really well. Now, what I want to do is challenge all of you to just have a quick think about how do you think you can do it better, even with the 38% that's working exceptionally well, and just jot down a couple of points. How do you think that you can enhance the present relationship that you have with your mentee? or official. Yeah, sorry. Mentee and official is going to be interchanged all the time during these webinars. And what I'd like to do, Peter, if we've got time, is for people to punch in some of their responses.
Yep. Yeah, I've just
Type
prompted
in
them
their
to do that.
responses in the chat.
Yep.
Yeah, into the chat box. So one or two things that can really enhance your relationship with your official at this point in time.
Give them a bit of time to do that, Daryl, and then we'll carry on.
We'll find out how quickly these mentors are typists as well.
A couple of things coming in. One more, regular meetings.
Yep.
Ability to see more. Sorry, Daryl.
Go on regular meetings.
More regular meetings. Ability to see more games and ensuring games appointed to are suitably pointed to are suitable quality.
Yep. Okay.
Do you want me to continue, Daryl?
Yeah, there's a couple more, mate.
Yep.
Any more coming?
Yep. Continued follow-up on agreed actions in regards to regular meetings and debrief actions from seminars and specialist appointments.
Okay.
Difficult.
Okay.
As we are off season, this is quite a good one. Difficult as we are off season. However, I am looking forward to dinner prior to some winter laws classes, which we are lecturing in.
Okay. All right. When we come down to the regular meetings and the follow-up, and the regular meetings, given that you are in the off season, you guys are in charge of that. I mean, what you've really got to do is, when I see things like that, it may mean that you may need to do a couple of little more nudges to your official, as long as it's within the context of their workload and everything along those lines. So maybe the answer is just a couple more texts to see how they're going and what is a good time to get in contact, especially with the regular meetings. To do the follow-up and the debrief, in debriefs, your official needs to be to have some time to organise their thoughts and to prepare. There is always the issue about seeing more games of quality games, especially if you are a mentor that doesn't have a lot of any, if any, input into the appointments. We know that with rugby union especially, we've got the mentors in rugby union who are, they're changing hats from doing the appointments to particular games to mentors, and both Scott and Dick were sort of working with that closely and see whether we can come back with a model about that. But it's always been a challenge for mentors to work within the system of seeing their official doing quality things. And I think you just have to keep plugging along, and again, it's not your role to break through and go, look, Josephine really needs a better appointment. It's a bit of a wait and see type situation, and a timing issue too, because they may get quality games and you're not available, and always go back to the videotape or the vision. All right, next slide. Thanks, Peter. Another poll question now. Again, this is about reflecting. As a mentor, are the skills you are providing to your official closer to a technical expert, a close buddy, general practitioner, a referee or umpire's coach, or a distant friend who tries to keep in contact regularly? So we might throw that up now, mate.
Okay, I think we're just, no, they're still coming in. A couple more seconds. Here we go. Yep, I think we're there.
Okay, so that's really good that we've got 86% of you guys' response saying that you're a general practitioner. So the analogy is coming along quite well with you guys, and you're actually implementing it as a practitioner, which is great. Now, with the 14% that are referees and umpires, coaches, remember that you have to define your roles very specifically if you are on the appointments as well as the mentor, or if your official does need a lot more technical input when it comes to assisting them in their game. Remembering that we would like you to move between the general practitioner and the referee, umpire, coach when required. So just keep that in the back of the head. We want you to move in and out of those two areas. And again, we're looking at getting some case studies together about sports who need to do that because of limited resources. Okay, thanks, Peter. Okay, what Peter didn't tell all you mentors was that Peter is actually an internationally renowned expert when it comes to disability sport around the world. Peter flies around the world giving keynote addresses on inclusion, disability. He has his own private international company, Peter, not-for-profit company, that deals with inclusive practices. So what I wanted to do is actually pick Peter's brain tonight. He is one of the directors of the Inclusion Club, which is that international company I just mentioned about, and for Peter to talk about some of the experiences he has of being a mentor, probably in an informal setting. Peter, would that be right to say?
A bit of both, actually.
Yep. Okay. I'm happy for you to share your experiences with the group, mate.
Yeah, well, there's a couple that come to mind. After more than 20 years engaged with the Australian Sports Commission, I've been fortunate enough to work pretty closely with a small team of people for pretty much most of that time there, which is the way I certainly like to work. In the early days in particular, and the person I have in mind was we're not so young now, a few years later, but was certainly very young, but very enthusiastic, talented, intelligent, and committed towards what we were trying to do in the unit that we had at the Sports Commission. And I guess while not being part of a formal mentoring program as such, I think it sort of ended up, certainly the first few years, being like that kind of relationship, because we had boundaries over that. The boundaries being that it was always, we had regular catch-ups and meetings, just one-on-ones. We talk about how the work's going or any particular projects or issues they might have. Also with working with other people within the unit as well. Also that I would give her particular responsibility and a sense of ownership about the work, and that increased and improved over time. So as that trust came up, and sometimes that involved quite a bit of compromise, I have to say, on my part, that I'd have to compromise perhaps some of the program elements that I was particularly keen on. I said, no, well, this is actually more important, that she has that responsibility and drives that element of it. And I think in the long term that really pays off when you give people the responsibility to make mistakes and enjoy their successes and to recognise them. What I found challenging over time, which hopefully is relevant to the group, is that nowadays, this is a long time later, that we're very good friends now, so we're good personal friends. But at the time, we had to separate from being a friendship to being in the mentor relationship and a work role in that way. And although I don't think it's ever been a problem, it was something that was always in my mind, that rather that was a work mentoring relationship. It wasn't kind of a personal relationship or a friendship at that time. It had particular boundaries and responsibilities on both of us, and I was very conscious of that over time. And it's not the same now because we're in different areas a little bit, but we still do work together there. So I found that quite a challenge.
Okay, Peter. With this relationship, how did you give feedback? How did you facilitate feedback? Was it in the office? Was it up at the coffee shop? Did you ever
Both.
have to have the hard conversation or the difficult conversation?
Both, yeah, both. We would have arranged catch-ups just for the two of us that were separate from other people in the unit, but also would have our unit meetings obviously as well. And I was always strong to try and stress that you can always catch up with me at any stage. We have our monthly catch-ups individually at the coffee shop, where some other issues might come out that wouldn't come out in a formal meeting with others, and that worked pretty well. I mean, I think the mixture of formality and private and with other people worked really well. Because there are some people who are intimidated. She's not so intimidated now in groups, but in those days she was certainly, I think, a bit intimidated and reluctant to speak out in a group situation. But personally, once I had that level of trust, it wasn't such an issue.
Yeah, and sort of listening to what you had to say, and also my experience, there's always this question mark in the back of my mind, is that sometimes you can empower an individual, but in doing that and empowering them, you could actually be disempowering them.
Yeah, well,
And people sort of turn that around as saying, well, you're setting them up for failure, and that's not really the case, because with all good intentions, you're trying to empower them to take them to the next step.
that's right. And you have to be switched on as to, is that step going to be too much? To be aware of how that particular project or that step is going, so you can step in or make sure that no catastrophic failure happens. But I was never afraid that people would fail in what they do. I mean, it's part of the learning curve of life, kind of thing. But just to be aware of that, it wasn't such a catastrophe if there was some sort of failure there, which was a good learning thing, I think.
And also, I get up in front of people and go, well, when you're in a mentor, if you're a mentor in a mentoring relationship, it's okay to see your mentee or official make mistakes.
Mm.
We've all grown up with our parents and guardians trying to protect us from the College of Hard Knocks and trying to give us advice. Like, I've got a 24-year-old and a 19-year-old boys at home, and you sort of try and protect them as parents do, or if it's not a parent, a friend.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's the College of Hard Knocks, and of course you get the response, "What do you know, Dad?" Like, you were born an adult, so what life experiences have you got?
Yeah.
And sometimes mentees won't say that, but they'll turn around and go, "Oh, you've had a pretty easy life as a mentor and stuff," and they really don't know the full background. So, but it's okay to make mistakes, because you think back, you reflect now on the biggest mistakes that you've made, and everyone's there going, yeah, I don't want to share that. Hope he doesn't ask me to type that in. Okay, but you learn from that. And that's probably the quickest and steepest learning curve that you have, is learning from that mistake. If you continually make the same mistake, then there's an issue.
Mm.
And that's what has to be addressed. Your thoughts, Pete?
Yeah. Well, that's entirely right. I was thinking while you were talking that you also admitting your own mistakes as a mentor as well, as part of that group, is an important part of that, because it shows that I'm not saying you're perfect and don't make mistakes either, and that if it was a more catastrophic mistake, then you as the you can take the responsibility for that yourself and stand by your colleagues in that way. So that was really good. The other part of that I wanted to contrast it with, a number of years later, I guess I was a mentor to someone who actually had more experience than me, who were recruited from overseas, who came into the unit, was very, very, had a high degree of expertise, a lot of experience. And so we didn't have that kind of natural. I was, with the first example, I was quite a bit older, a lot more experienced, and so that relationship was quite natural. But it wasn't when this other person came in, and that was a real challenge. I mean, a real challenge to that. But even though it was definitely a mentoring type relationship, because there were boundaries and rules around how we worked, that was difficult for a person who really had more experience in the area than I did.
Could I make a couple of comments? Because I think I know who you're talking about. This guy was full of energy, Peter.
Yes, indeed.
Yes. Now, it was really interesting to watch this from outside, because there were some cultural differences that were occurring too, because the person that came in from overseas wanted to drive agendas at any cost without a framework. Would that be right to say, Peter?
That's pretty
And
good
you
way of
were there
putting it.
trying to steady the ship so that he could work within a framework and not actually alienate himself to the decision makers whenever he put anything up. Is that correct?
That's pretty good assessment, Daryl. Yep.
Yeah, so what happened was Peter was in a situation of mentoring this guy with more experience. This guy was driven by outcomes, and what Peter had to do, and I would say, I'd go out on a limb, outcomes at any cost, basically. He was very forthright in your face, and Peter was there trying to mellow the way that he took people on and took projects on. And I must say that Peter did a great job, because it would have been very, very challenging in the first instance. So that was sort of my summary from outside, given that that gentleman and I sort of had some intense discussions at different times as well. And when people used to go back to Peter and go, well, we've had intense, Peter used to go into bat for him and say, look, the best way to talk to him is use these strategies. So, yeah, I thought it was actually well played looking from outside.
Yeah, I think that's where the area of compromise, which was severely tested at times in that case, but that's where the area of compromise comes in. And I think that if my default position, I'm not saying it's necessarily the best one, was always to support your staff, even though you may not agree or you think, there may be some differences. And the cultural thing was an interesting thing, because it was primarily the challenges that we had was different ways and cultures of doing things.
Yeah, that's right. And you were dragged into the boss's office on a couple of occasions with the door being closed behind you.
Yeah, we won't talk about that.
All right, mate. Well, we will move on. I'll keep continuing. So, what we want to talk about now, and I'll sort of go more to the verbal rather than referring to the slides, is that we talk about the successful mentoring relationship. And you may remember the 6 circles that we had up, and me practicing the word reciprocity. So what I want, again, reflect on what's happened over the last few months. So we talk about a successful mentoring relationship, and we talk about the term reciprocity. We talk about, so when we talk about reciprocity, are you actually getting something out of the relationship yourself? Are you growing? Are you learning on your continuum of learning as well? Do you feel that there is mutual respect occurring with people or with your official? Is there mutual respect? Have you defined the clear expectations and both of you have made a commitment to that? Have you set up, they've got here the term personal connection. What I talk about is the rapport. So have you got a good working rapport, even though you may not be having as regular meetings as you'd like, even though some of the follow-up isn't there? So is there a rapport that's been set up by both of you in this relationship? The interesting one is the shared values. Yeah, we've got the slides back up now, Pete, or I have.
Okay.
Have you got the shared values? Yeah, that's the slide we're up to. So if everyone looks to the left-hand side, we're up to that top left-hand circle, the shared values. So have you worked out that your values aren't too far from each other? So again, a successful mentoring relationship is basically evolves from those 5 areas. Would anyone like to make any comments, especially about the mutual respect or the rapport at this stage? If you want to throw some comments in. Has it occurred? Is it occurring? Did it have to occur?
Yeah, just while they're doing that, Daryl, the slides seem to have fixed a bit. Are they okay on your screen?
Yeah, just about, mate. Yeah, I mean, basically, I haven't got the headings, but I've got the guts of the slides.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's saying the slides are good now.
Yep, okay. All right, so let's maybe go straight to the poll question, mate. So we'll skip 2 slides because I did the summary while you were doing the technical stuff in the background. That's unusual. That's the first time it's happened in 2 years.
Yeah, well, it's sometimes it happens.
Next
like
slide, thanks, mate. We'll go straight to the poll. Yep, poll question. So in relation to the previous slide that we talked about, which was the blue circles, a successful mentoring relationship is formed on the following 5 major areas. Reciprocity, mutual respect, clear expectations, personal connection, and shared values. So what I want very quickly from you is a collective response in those 5 areas. How are you tracking? Are you tracking very well in all 5? Good in them? Okay, improvement can be made, or oh, I forgot the 5 main areas and they're back on my radar. So if you could quickly do the poll, let's just see whether it has been on your radar, whether it has evolved just by itself.
Yep, I think we're done. That was very quick. Good.
Okay, great. So we've got everyone tracking from good to very well. And again, what I want you to use is those 5 main areas as a bit of a tick box in your own mind. So are we going through and are we looking at the reciprocity, the mutual respect, the clear expectations, the personal connection, the shared values? And I think it's really good to do a quick self-reflection on that once you have face-to-face meetings or any type of communication contact with your official or dash mentee. Okay, thanks, Pete. Just go to the next slide, mate.
Sorry, yeah, what time is it?
Yeah, it's gone again, mate, so I'll just have to go verbal on this one.
Let me just try it.
So, characteristics of a good mentor. Now, I'm going to read through these slowly, and what I'd like you to do is put a tick on a piece of paper or mentally, a cross, or just a dash. Okay, so are you approachable and welcoming? Tick, cross, or just a dash? Do you share information and experiences openly? Tick, cross, or dash? Do you reflect good communication skills? Are you trustworthy? Do you provide accurate and appropriate feedback to your scholarship official? Do you offer technical expertise when required? Got a couple of other points for you. Again, cross, tick, cross, or just a stroke. Are you motivating, encouraging, positive, and empowering? Do you allocate appropriate time to mentoring? Now that time is defined about your preparation time as well as your face-to-face or interaction time, not necessarily face-to-face, but your interaction time. Are you sensitive to the needs of the official? Now, this question's an interesting one. Have you thought of your networks to assist in the growth of the official? So have you thought about your networks to assist in the growth of the mentor? Have you allowed the official to take responsibility for driving the relationship? Do you have reasonable expectations of the person you are mentoring? Do you respect their privacy of the discussions? So do you maintain confidentiality? Cross or tick. Do you respect the officials' views of the world and work with them, even though they may be a bit different to you? Are you applying a holistic development strategy to the official, similar to that of the general practitioner, which we talked about? And the last couple, are you prepared to take risks and do things differently to get a better outcome for your official? Do you feel comfortable, next question, do you feel comfortable in referring your official to other specialists? Have you acknowledged the achievements of the official, if there's been any achievements thus far? Have you avoided being a crutch for the official? Okay, now I think the poll questions are okay. What I'd like everyone to do is add up their score, and there should be 19 responses. So if we go to the poll, mates, we go to the poll. Now, have you tried to enact all 19 characteristics that we talked about? So if your score is between 16 and 19 ticks, then select that one. If it's between 10 and 15, 5 and 9, or 0 and 4. So if people could quickly do that, that'd be great.
Yeah, they're doing that. Yep.
Oh, great. So we've got most people up from the 10 to 19 bracket. So we've got 63% 16 to 19, and we've got 38% 10 to 15. So that's a great response, guys. And again, I use that completely as a checklist so that you can reflect on how well you're going. Now, the biggest challenge with any mentor-official relationship is that you're putting in preparation time, you're putting time into the relationship. The bottom line is you've got to add a little bit more time to do this self-reflection on how well you're traveling. And again, it's about you guys, and when I say guys, it's the generic, learning and improving your mentoring skills yourself. And that's a key, because within this whole situation, it is about you growing as a mentor and investing in the growth of the official themselves. Okay. All right. What are the responses back from the slides, Peter, at the moment? Are they going okay?
Yep. I'm not getting any problems here, so.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go to the characteristics of a good mentee. And again, it'll be a similar exercise, but now you're reflecting on your mentee or your official. Okay. So similar process to what we just went on about yourself. Now it's going to be about your official. Thanks, Peter.
Yeah, sorry, Dale, we are actually getting a few problems with the slides there, so there's probably a few problems with the slides. Not quite sure what it is.
Okay, well, I'll probably make a presidential call, mate, and it's probably a good time to finish now if we have to see whether we can fix up this technical error for next time. Um, Again, ladies and gentlemen, hasn't happened to us before. Apologise for the slides, but we will get it rectified um, in webinar number 2. All right, well, I will call stumps now, mate, and we'll sort it out between now and the next one. Again, people, if you have got time, because we're finishing about 15 minutes early, go through and have a quick look at the slides. If you get a chance, what will happen is the slides will probably be up in about 5 days' time, and I will email out the URL that you can basically cut and paste into your browser and go straight to it. So I do apologise for the technical aspects tonight. I thought it was just me, Peter, because I've got a new internet provider. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We will have this rectified next webinar. Thank you very much for your time. We try and make it as interactive as possible rather than sitting you down for 3 or 4 hours of face-to-face presentations. And again, this is flexible. And I would, if you've got time, go back and quickly have a look at some of the slides.